is the winner of the sports category this year. Please welcome Mad Architects.
Hello, everyone. Hello, dear judges. I'm Fiona from Mad Architect Beijing, and it's a great honor to be here today to present the Quzhou Stadium, the winner of the sports category. And thank you, WAF. It's a really a pleasure, a great honor. So to start with, I like to go to the bottom, the very end page of the PowerPoint, if possible, to present a brief video we made with Ma trying to explain his design philosophy. Yeah. But then we are going through the whole thing, so I'll come back to it later. There. So, yeah.
Quzhou is very special because of the landscape. The original landscape was very natural, very relaxed. Those landscapes has been here for a million years already, and now we're changing them. To build this memory or connection to the landscape, a space that's similar to the beautiful landscape around. I think I consider this space a void in this new town, because we often talk about objects, functions, those positive things, but I also think architecture can be negative, can be a void, can be a space. We want the architecture to disappear, and we need a space for people to have a moment to dive into another dimension of space and time. So I want this space to be very engaging and inviting and interaction with the public. It's a little bit like a land art project. So when you enter the park, when you see the future mountains like green volcanoes, it's quite an artificial, surreal environment. So when you look at from outside, right now you don't see this concrete thing underneath the landscape. You only see the steel roof. Look like a floating cloud floating above the green mountains. It's very light. But when you enter the building, you will find out the structure inside the mountains, underneath the green. I imagine those spaces to be very strong, very heavy. And when you see those columns, they have a rhythm. I find this is a discovery process. The public space need to provide people that escape from the daily life, from the reality.
Okay. And then I go all the way back to the beginning of the presentation. Adding, that's pretty much well said about the design philosophy for this whole thing. Just adding to what hasn't been addressed in this video, it's unfortunately he cannot make it himself to be here. We dive into the whole history and the background of the city before we started the design of this project. Quzhou is the biggest city in Zhejiang province, which is right next to Shanghai in East-South China. And it has a really long history that the descendants of Confucians moving to Quzhou in the Song dynasty, and it has a really beautiful landscape. And we look into all the archive of the city, and it has the most World Nature Heritages Award from Southeast China, and is well known as its openness, and also it started the agriculture, and it started with the exchange and the market of livestock, then become what it is today. So nature and landscape and mountain is an important part to this city, and it's covered 50% with mountain. So if you look into it, it's such a huge city when you talk about the size of it, but it's only with 2.5 million population. It's not like any other mega cities around it. And it plays an important role. It's connecting Zhejiang province and Anhui province, and also right next to Hangzhou, where the big headquarters of the internet corporate like Alibaba is there. It's a low density. And the commission for this stadium is to create their first stadium, and also their only one stadium in the city history, in the new city center, where everything's starting to build up high and like a typical modernism. Instead of creating something muscular, powerful, we decided to turn everything into a big park that everyone can enter and accessible, really accessible to everyone. So that's a whole master plan. The stadium is 30,000 seats, and that is the phase 1, as was completed last year. And the phase 2 has a gymnasium and natatorium, and also 3 training centers. So the whole master plan is connected with the civil roads. People can get in and out there very quickly, and even on their everyday commute to their work. So there's no cut off the whole area in the city, and you can like drive past or cycle past it. And it's combined with pedestrians and running ramp, creating this landscape and mountain. So what we're trying to do is to replicate a nature landscape into the new high-density city and turn them into the sports buildings. That's the render. You can see the height limit and the height control and everything. And then these are the photos of the stadium you see already pretty much in the video. Several things we want to emphasize is since its completion, there are already many youth and child sports school being established underneath this stadium within the office. So every weekend is occupied. And but what we'd like to further to emphasize is the landscape and how we really replicate the nature into the city. We did a very careful design together with the landscape architect to rebuild a ecosystem, and also to recycle, to rebuild the whole water system. So when the rain comes, there's a grass and earth on the roof, also with the water draining down, and with the different layers of design of the slope, we actually have a lot of sunken gardens to restore, to storage the water from the rain, from the storm. And then it's connected with the civil engineer pipeline underneath, and then everything goes back to cleanly to the city, and also to the water. You can see there's a beautiful river right next to, not far away from the stadium site. And also the lake is existing lake. We'll be trying not to destroy, but to work around it. And also choosing carefully a local plant, also the seasonal grass. So everything turned yellow in the winter, but it can grow organically. You don't need a lot of maintenance or watering it, and it just be there like a part of a natural grass. And also is the structure is also a big challenge to make happen. It is probably it is the biggest earth-sheltered project in China, and the whole thing is the biggest probably in the world. The whole stadium has 2 floors, and all the supporting structure is the concrete, the concrete of 60 panels make a nice area of the rhythm to support the whole thing. And all the concrete is made and cured and fabricated locally, which is what we're trying to construct sustainably, but also to create the poetry, the beauty of the shape. And it supports a really lightweight structure, the rain, the floating cloud on top of it with a PTFE, like a double layered. So the bottom layer with hole can absorb all the sound from the activities, and the top layer is for rain and wind and weather cover. So there are a lot of other technical questions, but the whole purpose of doing this is to give it back to the people, make stadium not only the power showing for the athletes and the games. And right now it's really popular. All the city, all the residents and all the tourists like to go there. And it is 24 hours, 7 days, every day is open to everyone. So yeah, that is my brief presentation. Thank you.
I'd like to jump in first. I know a lot of young Chinese friends, some of whom I've taught or worked for me, have gone to Ma's office. I know it's a sort of hotbed it's like a finishing school for some of the smartest kids, I think not just Chinese. I really want to think about it as a proposition. I think it's a proposition that you nearly pulled off, but perhaps your wish to demonstrate architecturally got it. This is my analysis. It's a roof and a landscape. Now, actually, a couple of schemes back, we had another roof and a landscape. Slightly different landscape, perhaps a less manipulated landscape, and a slightly different roof, but nonetheless the proposition of the roof and the landscape, and then the building was creeping out. But it crept up fairly discreetly. Now, what's intriguing to me is that, to me, if you'd pulled it off totally, it would have been a roof sailing over the landscape. But you're hot young architects. You want there to be a bit of architecture showing as well. And that, in a way, conceptually, to me, is a slippery slope. Because the more you want to have the proposition, the roof sits on this beautiful landscape, but then there's a bit of this, and then a bit zigging,
Yes.
and then something else popping out there. And actually, you've almost lost it, because again, it's another stadium with stuff, the landscape creeping up on it, and the separated roof, but the stuff is there. Whereas I think the magic moment would have been if you had the landscape and you wondered what the hell was going on inside. Well, you knew it was, and you could hear the roar of the crowd, but you couldn't see the stuff. Somehow you get into vomitories or other ways of getting in. I just suggest this as a sort of, I think I know what you're trying to get at, but your own, whatever it is, élan, shall we call it, gets in the way. You guys maybe disagree.
I never disagree with you. No, I think that, I saw the renders that you showed at the beginning several years ago. And I think that this is one of these magic projects that sometimes happen in China, where you see someone won a competition with a very strong idea, to create this kind of lunar landscape with craters and so on. But then sometimes this happens and this gets built, no? I suppose that there are still more buildings coming in that park.
Yes.
That then create this very, I would say, fantastic situation on this landscape surrounded by a city that is, as we saw in the picture, some kind of, I would say, modern blocks one after the other, no? So I think that as a project is great. The only thing I didn't like very much is that you tried to justify some kind of sustainable concrete, that this is something that doesn't exist even in China, So I would say that it's not necessary to try to explain how sustainable is this structure, that is not. But at the same time, I think that this project master the construction of these structures in order to reproduce this very organic and beautiful landscape.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been interesting. We've seen a few landscapes and floating roofs and various schemes, which I'm all in favor of. I'm quite impressed with the like the canopy and the structure and everything. When I was looking at the pictures, I was going, where are all the conduits and sprinklers and escape signs and everything? It seemed mysteriously clear of all those, which I'm hoping is reality and not Photoshop, because our own experience in this part of the world particularly is it's very hard to get all those things coordinated and integrated really nicely. There's usually something that turns up later and needs to be surface fixed.
Yes.
So yeah, I think it's a really controlled and quite masterful, I think, in the way it's dealt with a lot of those issues of structure and escape and everything, yet in the end you've ended up with quite a sculptural form that's undisturbed by all those elements. So well done.
Thank you.
Nice presentation. I think I will probably reflect on what Peter said. Your whole concept of a roof and a landscape, clear. Implementation, not so clear. I mean, it's interesting that you can do sustainable concrete with a landscape where you're using part of the landscape as part of your structure, so that you minimize the amount of concrete you're using. That would have come out much better because you'd have achieved what you're trying to achieve. That's the only thing I would say. But as a form, it's a beautiful form, and all the other issues of what you're trying to do in terms of the way you've embedded some of the other building within you've basically covered them with landscape. Whether you actually use the landscape or the earth material as part of your structure would have been fantastic. So stadiums are very difficult as a typology to make sustainable.
Yes.
It needs a lot of work. But I would agree with Peter, you're halfway there.
Yes, thank you, judges. I think in adding to the comments, I think it is a little bit meaningful, not only to us as architects, but also for China, because for big urban, like the first and the only stadium, from the decision making until the outcome, it's a very closed, authorized kind of process. And for that large-scale piece of land in the new urban center they're trying to create, it's very important for us to step in and to remind everyone that it can be given back to the people. So for the technology sustainability of architecture, I think it goes in relevantly because it's different occasion, different standard, different level of development of countries defines a different definition of sustainability. But one thing we are trying to achieve is make everyone to love it and enrichment of their living experience in terrible city lives. So if they go there, they love it, they like enjoying it, then maybe for 100 years, oh, it's too aggressive, too ambitious. Maybe for 20, 30 years, it's sustainable. Like people use it every day. People can enjoy it every day. And it's a pity that I didn't put a lot of post-construction after use kind of images, but it is like so popular. People fly to the city to see it. And I wouldn't say that's the power of the formation, but it is a power of a complexity of reasons of everything that what an architect could do, and especially the set example in China, that giving these spaces and these buildings back to the people, the local communities, and also like accessible. So yeah, I think that was something we were trying to approach in addition to all the technical and all the other terms. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you.